Namaste. Today, I'm going to illustrate how to practice Ahimsa, non-harming, in Pashimottanasana, straight leg seated forward fold. If you look above me, Pashimottanasana is that posture right there. That's the final posture. One can arrive at that final posture over a period of time, practicing safely and consciously from a place of self-love or ahimsa. To get into the anatomy part of the posture, I just want to illustrate that when you fold forward, the fold comes from the rotation of the hip joint like this, right? The hip has to rotate forward like this for you to fold forward like this. And if you notice, my spine is long here when I fold. The fold comes from the hip joint, not from the spine. If your hamstrings, calf muscles, glutes are very tight, which is the case for a lot of people, then that restricts the mobility of the pelvic joint, the hip joint, to rotate in that direction. And this restriction can then exert a negative force on the spine if you try to then do too much while being restricted by the hip joint. For example, in this posture, in Pashimottanasana, somebody with a restricted or a tight hip joint, they may not be able to move forward much at all with the spine long, maybe just even this much or even less than that. But in our enthusiasm to do the final posture, or because you're watching somebody else who's doing it, and they may be practicing for many years, they may not have the same limitations. In our enthusiasm, we sometimes try to reach for too much. So if the hip joint cannot rotate any further than here, and you're still trying to hold your toes, what's going to happen is you're going to recruit from the spine. And this is what happens. You begin to round the spine so you can take the shoulders forward like this and reach for the toes. Now, if you notice, my spine is round here, and this is harmful for the spine for sure, the low back, but it's also not really good for the shoulders and neck either. Yeah. So we are creating harm here because of our enthusiasm to get more than we are truly ready for. It can also be called greed for something that we're not ready for yet to be given to us. Greed, by the way, or non-greed is also one of the basic principles of yama, or the yoga practice. So we are practicing not just non-harming but non-greed while being conscious in our practice here. So one way to do that is if your hamstrings, calf muscles are really tight, hips are tight, and you don't have much mobility here as you sit in Dandasana, in the straight leg posture, seated posture, then one thing to do is just focus on the earlier stages of the posture. Dandasana is the upright stage of Pashimottanasana, and just focus on lifting the sternum up, lengthening the spine, lifting the sternum up like this. Now, if your hamstrings and legs are really tight, then it may be better for you to even sit on a folded blanket. That way the hips are slightly elevated. They're naturally already rotating forward a little bit like this. So you'll have a little more room to lengthen up, and the low back will be a little more free to do that. If you're folding forward and you don't have much mobility at all here because it's restricted, then there are a couple of ways to deal with this. First is just take your arms up, fold from the hip joint. Now, if you can't go further than this, just drop the hands to where they reach, and you're slightly folded forward here, maybe not much, but a little bit, even that makes a difference. And you hold and pull the sternum up here. As you do that, it's going to help to open the hip joint and open the back of the legs. Over time, you can move forward a little, keep the spine long and relax the hips. Maybe you move a couple of inches and spend a couple of weeks here, lengthening the spine here. And then you keep going like that. Maybe relax the hips and go a couple more inches, lengthen the spine here. And then you keep moving in that direction, very slowly though, with patience. Acceptance, patience, non-harming. You can feel your body and you can feel whether you're doing too much or not. So it's working with sensitivity and awareness. And as you continue like that, there'll come a day when you can hold your toes and then lengthen there in the half position. And then after that, you can slowly work towards the full position, which we will talk about later. Another way to approach the practice of Ahimsa in a seated forward fold is that if your hamstrings and hips are really tight and you have low back injuries especially, then it's better to just bend your knees. You can place bricks here and just focus on keeping the spine long. Just lift the sternum here like you did, go up like you did, take the arms up, release the hands wherever they reach. You can also use a belt if you'd like. So putting your hands on your legs, you can hold the belt and stay in the upright position or fold forward slightly wherever is available for you and lengthen the spine and stay there. You can drop the elbows and lengthen the spine to stay here. And you progress in the same way. Maybe you just do whatever's comfortable. At some point, the hips will open, the hamstrings will open through your practice, and the body responding to your practice. And you can slowly move deeper into the posture over time. It also helps you to learn how to be aware, how to be conscious in your practice, how to use your intelligence, how to be accepting and honoring your body, and how to really develop the practice of being loving towards yourself. If you can get that practice towards yourself, you can then also, it'll help you to extend being loving towards others. Namaste. Thank you very much.